this awesome group, and I want to welcome everybody tonight. First time I've started a meeting, so we'll see if how I do. You can all grade me at the end of this. So I think our first task is to read and approve the agenda. Does everybody have a copy? Do I have a motion to approve the agenda?
Motion to approve.
Okay, and don't forget to tell your name to Helen. Where's Helen? Here's Helen, okay.
April.
And do I have a second?
I second.
Okay, and your
Jonathan
name?
Highland.
How would you know everybody? If you don't know their names, you can just ask her. Okay.
Yes, I can look at
There,
And you have very good eyesight. Any discussion?
there we go.
All in favor? Aye. Any opposed? Okay, we're good. And let's take a look at the minutes from the last time. I'll give you a second to read those. Cool. We ready? Do you have a motion to approve the minutes? Thank you, Debbie. And do we have a second?
I second.
Okay, any discussion? All in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? We're good to go on that. All right. Next, we'll take a look at the mission statement. I'll ask you to read that on your own, please. It's at the top of the agenda. Kind of look up when you're done reading. We good? Okay. Do we have any members of the public here? Everybody's a member of the committee? Yes? Okay, so we're good with that. Well, we're just picking up speed here. Okay, board member report, Ms. Vaughn.
And I never know exactly what to include because there's so much or there's so little. One thing that you may have heard about, excuse me, that impacts on curriculum is the Build Your Own Future. Did you guys hear about that? It was sponsored by the building trades, and it was amazing. It's the first time I've ever been there. It was at the Civic Center, and they had all these different building trades out there, everything from, you know, HVAC and actual literal masonry where they could actually do that, big machines. And we had both middle school and high school kids. And so hands-on, so it just is, it's a good reminder, and they were very engaged, and they were actually talking, some of them were actually talking to some of the companies that were represented there, and it just is a reminder how with our curriculum, we have the new, well, it's not really new, it's new again, or some, the career, being prepared for career as well as academic pursuits after high school. And I brought a few, these are, I only have limited copies, so if anybody wants to see these, or I can put one on each table. For the strategic plan, I am on the committee for retaining teachers, recruiting, retaining teachers, and this is a booklet. This is a booklet that they put together, and I think there's some interesting things in it that, again, we can have wonderful curriculum, but if we don't have excellent teachers delivering these things in the classrooms, I want to share that. Does anybody have questions about anything? I know you've read that, yeah.
Well, not this, but back to that career day that you had. our school is an avid school,
Uh-huh.
and at our SAC meeting last week, somehow the communication did not get to our
Really?
to Three Oaks Middle, because our avid director would have liked to have taken students there,
Yeah,
but she didn't know anything about it.
wow, and I have no idea how they got the word out.
But I'm glad to see it being done.
So nobody went from Three Oaks Middle?
Nope.
Three Oaks Middle didn't get the word, because they had quite a few school buses there, and I figured I would have run into a former colleague of mine from Sarah High School who does the construction there, and so it was really very well attended, and that's really too bad. I don't know if there was, I don't know what the criteria was to be invited, nor do I understand. Well, there's somebody that might know.
Hello?
Do you want to repeat the question for Dr.
Oh.
Spiro?
Well, concerning the career day last week at the Civic Center for middle and high, we discussed that at our SAC meeting. Excuse me, I just put
Well, that's okay.
drop in my mouth. And nobody, our avid director didn't receive any notification, nobody at our school knew about it. I think maybe our admin had gotten it the day before.
Okay.
So at that point, it was too late to do any, organize anything.
So Build My Futures was sent by Rita Davis, her department, Adult Career Ed, and I know that was pushed out to our CTE teachers in all of our high schools and middle schools, and I believe the principals were invited on that as well. But as an avid proponent, I definitely see the value of making sure that that's accessible to those students as well. Schools got the opportunity to choose how many students were coming, which students were coming, and it was an internal decision for them. The opportunity was just open to all of our schools. I think she wound up having over 700 plus students that went to that event.
Oh, I know that our avid director really, she was very disappointed that she wasn't able to have the kids participate in that. It just somehow there was a communication break.
And I can pass that on.
Okay.
Yeah, good, because I had just finished before you came in at just the right timing, said, I don't know, I was writing down Three Oaks Middle and I thought, well, look into it, but then you came in, I figured you would know because I saw you there and it was, as I said to the group, it really was a wonderful opportunity. And don't you know some of those kids are going to be working for these companies, making at 18 or 19 years old, twice what one of our beginning teachers made, which is good for them and not so good for teaching. Does anybody have any other questions? So that's my report.
Terrific, thank you. We're going to have a presentation this evening, but I think since I managed to pick up a few minutes, I think it would be a good idea if we just went around the room and everybody introduced themselves so we can remember who we are. Before I do that, though, if I could just get by show of hands, I want to get how many people work for the district and how many people don't currently work for the district, so we get a sense of the balance in the room. How many of you are currently employed here in Lee County Schools? 1, 2, 3. I'm not going to count you guys. You're visiting firemen, right? Okay. And the rest of you are all community reps. Okay. All right. That helps you a little bit. And so can we just go around the room for a minute and introduce ourselves to each other one more time? We did it last week, but if you're anything like me, you don't remember everybody that's in the room. Does anybody remember everybody who's in the room? Good. Marissa, would you please start? Marissa is our vice chair. Acknowledge that.
I'll stand up because I'm kind of short, so I don't wanna. Okay, hi, I'm Marissa Beyer, and I am originally from Broward County, which is only the second best district. Lee County's first. So I started teaching back in 2013, and since being in Lee County, I have only taught in the East Zone. So I like to call myself the East Zone representative just because I don't know anything else. I started at Varsity Lakes from 2015 to 2018, was at East Lee last year, and this year I'm at Veterans Park, and I teach English and reading. And I am also the mama to a lot of L25s, and it's awesome. I don't know anything else. So East Zone L25 lady, and I wear it proud.
Now tell us what an LT5 is.
Lowest 25%.
Okay. L25. Okay, I was hearing LT5. Wait a minute, what is that T? Okay, terrific, thank you. Okay, Christine?
I'm Christina Stewart. I am a certified elementary education teacher, but right now I am working with law enforcement. But I am here because I still want to stay within the education field until I become a teacher next school year. And that's it.
Terrific, thank you. Okay, Jonathan?
Hello, Jonathan Highland. I actually work in customs consulting, import exporting. So I do something not known at all to Southwest Florida, or even Florida, unless you go to Tampa. But I actually want to get involved with the school district because I'm very passionate about education, and I want to try to improve it and learn a little something myself as well. So.
Terrific, thank you. Okay, and
Ruth Ann Marlowe.
thank you.
Ruth Ann Marlowe, I'm a retired school principal from Dade County and an adjunct professor for Nova.
Terrific. So we do have a little bit of other coast represented here, don't we? Okay, Sophie?
I'm Sophia Wirtz, retired Baltimore City Police Officer. Currently a crisis counselor with Ed's Counseling. I love kids.
Terrific.
So any way that I can help them.
So we've got some law enforcement expertise here, it sounds like. Okie dokie. Okay, in addition to obviously teaching, I'm just looking for some of the differences in our room. All right, we'll go to the back table.
Okay, I'm Donna Dunker. I'm a retired technology teacher from Tampa, and before that in New Jersey. And my grandchildren are in the Cape, so we moved down here 4 years ago, and I was hoping to get more technology in the lower grades. But the principal at Skyline had asked me when she saw that this position advertised last year if I would be interested in joining, and I definitely agreed. So it's been a learning curve for me to learn how Lee County schools work as opposed to Hillsborough County and Monmouth County up in New Jersey. So this is really good. Last year was a big learning curve for me, and I feel like I gained a lot, and hopefully this year I can contribute a little bit.
So you're particularly interested in the technology side,
Yes.
and you guys are particularly interested in the socio-emotional learning kind of stuff, probably the law enforcement background, other things that safety, everything. Ms. Vaughn?
Well, I'm Betsy Vaughn, School Board District 6, that's the at-large district, and my career background is 38 years as an English language arts teacher, mostly juniors and seniors, but I've also had experience with reading and some ESOL and that sort of thing. And my last 8 years in my career was at Estero High School.
So I'm also hearing an English language arts reading kind of thread that we're reading here. Okay, Debbie? Whoops, sorry.
Well, I'm Debbie Fight, and I'm actually a product of the Lee County school system from way back. So graduating Beach Elementary and then on to Dunbar South 7, first year of integration, and then Cypress Middle and Cypress Lake High School, class 75. And I've been a teacher now for 23 years, 13 years at Pinewoods Elementary, and the last 10 years at Three Oaks Middle, teaching reading and language arts.
Oh, we keep going with that same thread, don't we? Okay, April?
And piggybacking on Ms. White, I also am a product of the Lee County School District, Calusa Elementary, Tropic Isles Elementary, Pine Island Middle, which no longer exists, Mariner High School when they opened. This is my 22nd year teaching, 20 years in elementary, 2 years in middle school. I am the magnet lead teacher at Hearns Marsh Middle School, and I have 2 children in the school district.
And when you're in the classroom, you teach?
Reading to the L25s.
Okay. Right, terrific. And Stacy?
I'm Stacey Grayson. I'm the Director of Education for Naples Zoo. And I also have a child in Lee County now.
Terrific, all right, good to meet you.
Yeah, Matthew Hoffman, I'm a full-time faculty at FSW teaching business and legal studies. I'm also an attorney. I practice on the side primarily in immigration work, and I've got 4 children in the school district.
I'm Larry Tina, and I was started off as a speech pathologist, and I was administrator for the deaf and the blind students, and ESC director for 7 years, and then principal, and then executive director of curriculum staff development. My last job was superintendent here. And, Lee County Schools I'm committed to because I think it's a wonderful organization. I felt very, very fortunate to be in this district. Very fortunate. Because the people were open to change, and the teachers were great, and always looking for ways to help the kids. I mean, that's the truth. I'm not saying that just because I'm from this district. It was really true. So I was glad to be here when I had a little chance. My wife Debbie was involved with all the things, and really I kind of wrote on her shirt tails and blouse tails, or whatever you want to call it, and just she figured a lot of stuff out. And so she's still involved, so we try to stay really involved in the school district.
Thank you so much. We have our staff here. Introduce yourselves.
Sure. Candace Oliveto, Director of Curriculum and Instruction, primarily working with high schools this year. Background in the district 15 years, also a product of Lee County Schools, so a graduate of Cape Coral High. And I've got one in the district as a second grader this year, and I've got one coming up to kindergarten next year.
And when you teach?
Elementary was where I started. Secondary math, though, is my love language. So, but first grade phonics, phonemic awareness, that's where I started, and then because of it, moved out and up into intermediate.
You're the lonely math person.
I am the lonely math person.
And you're used to it, right?
Yes, I am.
She will always present the data and all of that. Just get used to that.
Oh my goodness.
I'm Bethany Quisenberry, also a Lee County graduate, Lehigh Elementary, Lehigh Middle, and then first graduating class of Lehigh Senior High. I was a kindergarten teacher for many, many years, a reading specialist, then an assistant principal, a principal, and then it's my second year as elementary director for curriculum and instruction. I have 4 children. That one is just recent graduate and is actually at FSW. I have one son who is in Miss Fight's ELA class at 3 Oaks, and then I have a son at, look, I'm trying to keep track of my head.
Look at me.
I have a daughter at Lehigh Senior High School who will graduate this year, and then my youngest son is in kindergarten at San Carlos. My last count was 10 schools for all 4 of my children. So I have, I love this county. I moved away and came back, very passionate about everything that we do, and we have amazing schools and amazing teachers and students.
And when you teach in what area?
I was always elementary, so kindergarten and second grade.
Okay, terrific. And Dr. Sparrow?
I'm Jeff Sparrow. I'm the Chief Academic Officer for the School District of Lee County, a product of the school district as well. I went to Palouse Elementary, Palouse Middle, graduated from Cape Coral High School. Thank you. Thank you. Came up through the ranks, like many of my colleagues as well. I was a teacher for middle school, assistant principal, and then I've been a principal of an alternative school, school for special needs, K-8, elementary, multiple high schools as well. I've been an executive director over high schools and middle schools before, so I feel very blessed truly to be part of this district. Both of my children, who are now adults, came up through this district and graduated at Fort Myers High School, where they graduated from. And so I feel very honored to be here and part of the team. Everyone's talked about the area of focus. As the Chief Academic Officer, my greatest area of focus that I really can use support in is around ELL. We have, during this past year, over 2,000 new ELL students that have been enrolled this year. Last year, same time, we had over 1,600 new ELL students. So we are one of the top 5 fastest growing school districts in the state of Florida in this population. And so we really need support for our teachers on how to best instruct students from a variety of different backgrounds. And so as everyone was sharing their needs, that really is a focus that I would love to get some feedback on as well.
I guess I should introduce myself. I'm Judy Wilkerson, and I'm the foreigner in the room. Like you, I teach in the post-secondary environment. I'm at Florida Gulf Coast University, where I teach research, evaluation, assessment. And my children experience is in ESOL. However, not in a U.S. public school, but in the Russian embassy in Washington, D.C., which was and experience of itself. So that's who I am. And as you might expect with what I just said about myself, I kind of have a research background. And so tonight we're going to do a little bit of a field test. And I will explain that in terms of one of the pages that's in your handouts tonight. We had a very active, wonderful year last year and had a major accomplishment. And I'm going to ask you to pull out the table or the chart that's in your packet. And one of the big things that we did last year was we developed a process for how we would conduct the business of this team so that we could hopefully make some contributions to the district staff and board. And it didn't look quite like this. I changed it a bit. What we had, and I'm sorry we didn't bring it, was a really beautiful graphic with, circles and arrows and stuff like that. And maybe Bethany can find it and we can show it. And it's a great process that had these general questions as the 4 steps. So one of the things that I did in preparation for this meeting was implement that process by converting those general questions to specific questions for our big topic tonight that we decided on last week. And our specific question is, what continuous improvement opportunities exist to improve ELA performance for the low 25%? I think that's what we all agreed to last time. And we need to understand the problem. So we're going to look tonight at the current district needs and interventions. And the result that we want to have from our discussion, what kind of input and recommendations we want to provide to the board. Well, we're looking to support the current interventions, suggest additional interventions based on committee expertise, and make some kind of a proposal to the board supporting current work and suggesting additions. So that's our target for tonight. And the data that we need is what I call digested data. And when I met with our wonderful staff people earlier this month, they graciously agreed to give us a presentation that focused on some of those things that we can sink our teeth in. I think last month we had a wonderful experience with them where they helped us celebrate what a fantastic job Lee County Schools is doing in all areas. We really had to struggle to find, a -1 here and a -1 there, and it was really mostly celebrating. But I think in any context, we can be absolutely fantastic, but there's always one little thing that we can do just a little bit better. So it's kind of that quality assurance model, which is what we saw a lot of last week. And today we kind of switch into the continuous improvement mode and look for some areas where we might have some expertise to contribute, which is why I was asking everybody what their area of expertise was. That can be some suggestions to the district that they are free to accept or reject. Advice is cheap, right? Especially in a volunteer committee. But maybe we'll have some really good ideas that can help the district do an even better job of what they are already doing. So, are you okay with this process that we're beginning to field test tonight? And I think if you're comfortable with it, the way we've talked about going through this is our staff are going to make their presentation, and then after that we're going to have everybody working in tables to kind of think through what they've said, think through these questions, and then we'll have some time to report out afterwards. And if you are comfortable in selecting somebody to record, maybe you might record on this sheet or on another piece of paper, whatever makes you comfortable. I don't want anybody to feel tied into this sheet. But if you do have an opportunity to fill in some of these things, then we can take it and compile it and see where we go next. Sound like a plan? Works?
Yeah.
Okay, terrific. So it is now 6:25, and am I late or am I on time? How am I doing?
Good.
I'm doing okay?
You're doing good.
Okay, so we'll spend about 30 minutes in the presentation, is that, or a little bit less, or a little bit more, whatever you guys need.
How many questions they have.
And ask questions during the presentation, and then we'll do table work. Is that the way you want to do it?
Exactly.
Okay, sounds good. Then I'm going to go sit down.
Okay, so I already introduced myself. I'm Bethany Quisenberry, and as I said earlier, I'm very passionate about elementary. And so in our last, as Dr. Wilkerson discussed in our last meeting, we talked about focusing on our learning gains and our some of our lowest 25%, and what actions or what steps are we doing as a district to ensure that those students are successful, and that when we start looking at elementary, middle, and high, that's a huge task to present in 20 minutes. And so we chose to break it apart and do elementary first, and then our next meeting will be middle, and the next meeting after that will be high school. I just ran away with it. Okay, so first I just wanted to give you some background on how massive elementary is in our district. We're a very large district, and we're very bottom heavy with the amount of schools for elementary. So we have 50 elementary schools across our zones, and then this breaks down the number of teachers in each grade level. So when you start looking at that as a district perspective and our ability to be able to effectively provide professional development for our teachers to ensure that they have the strategies that they need for best practices for their students, we have to get very innovative in the way that we do that. We can't just say, oh, kindergarten teachers come down for a training, because there's 276 of them. And so making sure that we meet that need, but also have a reality check when it comes to it. So I'm going to talk about some processes that we put into place to ensure that we accomplish that. I also wanted to review, because not everyone in here works for the school district, right? So I wanted to review our school grading process and how it pertains to elementary, because it's a little different. In elementary school, you have pre-K to 5th grade students, right? But only 3rd, 4th, and 5th take the FSA. And FSA is the only piece of our school grade. So there's only a small percentage of kids in an elementary school that actually count towards their school grade. Now, the background on that is they have to master the skills in K1 and 2, right, to be successful in 3rd grade. So every grade level is just as important because you're teaching those foundational skills, but the pieces that actually count for our school grade is only 3rd to 5th grade ELA proficiency, 3rd to 5th grade math proficiency. Then when you start looking at learning gains, only students who were retained in 3rd grade count for learning gains. So hopefully at most schools, you're talking less than 10. Some of our really large schools, they might have 20. And then 4th and 5th ELA for gains, 4th and 5th math learning gains. Then they take all of those students and they rank them for your lowest 25%. So it used to be that they would take the lowest 25% in 4th, lowest 25% in 5th, your retained kids, and all of those kids counted for your lowest 25%. Now, they take the retained kids, they put them in the pot, and they take all of 4th and 5th and they rank them. So in some schools, you might be 5th grade heavy for your L25 because some of your lowest students are there. Or you might be 4th grade heavy for L25. It's not an equal distribution anymore. And then 5th grade science is one of the components. Does anybody have any questions about that so far? Because I said that really quick. Okay. So, some of the things that go ahead.
Why did they change it? Why is it not, is there a reason?
Why does the state do anything?
It was up to the state.
I don't know. Do you know the answer to that?
Why they changed
Why did they change it? Like, yeah.
It changed when we switched over to FSA.
Okay.
They were
That makes a little bit of sense.
They were looking to group the like students by their prior year assessment.
Right.
So as you think about as students move through the grade levels, they may have a different assessment that they've taken. So that groups like students with like students. So that's when it was changed. So that way we're grouping those students together.
And that would make a little more sense because I teach 8th and I have full classes of L25s. Because they're like,
You're probably,
you know what I mean?
probably
Because of the
heavy,
rate. Yeah, it's how you're
Yeah.
well, it just happens to be like that this year.
Yeah. And schools, just for background, schools know who their L25 are at our FTE count in October. So all schools know now which of their students that are sitting in their building are in our lowest 25%. Yes?
No.
Oh, I'm sorry. Okay.
No, my bad.
Okay. Yes, Dr. T.
I just want to make sure I understood this. Your school grade is in terms of, it's retained, the lowest 25% of retained 3rd, 4th, and 5th grade ELA students?
Only retained 3rd grade students count in the L25.
Well, really, then that by itself encourages people not to retain children. Sure does.
Well, we would hope we don't retain children anyway.
Yeah, I know that,
But
but and we'll get into that issue later, but that's a strange way to do things.
and not all of them count. So sometimes even if the student was retained in third grade, their score is still not low enough to be in the L25.
Yeah.
So it depends. Okay, so some of the overall ELA supports that we have for elementary is first, in my department, we have a ELA coordinator, a content specialist, and 2 coaches. And their primary position is to create the instructional guides, the curriculum maps, and the different resources that we push out to the schools, I'll talk to in a second, but then also to go out for school support. So they provide all of the professional development for our elementary schools, as well as go to schools to support individual grade levels, which we call PLCs, maybe support individual teachers, depending on what that school need is and what the data looks like. Yes?
You said you've got here 2 coaches, but so all in all, you have 4 people in your department
That's correct.
that do all of this? That's a lot. That's a lot of
For ELA.
expectation, yeah.
We have a mighty team.
Sure, but-
And when I start talking through all of the things that they have accomplished in a year and a half, it is outstanding for such a small team. So as I mentioned, and we talked about this last year for anybody that was on the committee last year, is part of our work last year, a big, huge piece of our work last year was we created curriculum maps, which would be a scope and sequence, if you will, for all of the standards and what order they would go in for all grade levels K to 5. Then we took the standards that were taught on the curriculum map and we created instructional guides, which would be like a lesson plan for every single standard, for every single grade level. So some of the guides are 1 to 2 days, some of the guides are 3 to 5 days, depending on how long it takes to teach that standard. But we did resource out to teachers and had workforces come in to really help to guide that work. Then we also created formative assessments. So one of the ways that we ensure that we're going back and reteaching and watching our data for our standards is we have 2 progress monitoring formative assessments each quarter. Again, every grade level, K to 5. So even though we only test in 3, 4, 5, all grade levels receive all of these supports because all grade levels are important and help to build the foundations for learning. For reading and, go ahead.
There are as many definitions of formative assessment as there are people in this room, and some. So when you're talking about formative assessments that you've created, those are forms, those are questions that are similar to what's on the state test?
Yes, we use the test specs items for 3, 4, and 5 we did.
Okay.
For K to 2, obviously, we did not. However, there were parameters around it. So teachers are not able to take it for a grade because we want it to be true progress monitoring. So if we're doing that, we want to ensure that it doesn't take up a huge amount of time for instruction. And with reading, the standards get very complicated in 4th and 5th grade where they're having to compare 2 or more passages, they're having to read through the passage. And so we wanted to make sure that they didn't last more than 15 to 20 minutes for an average reader. In order to do that, you have to have less questions, right? So it doesn't truly match FSA, but it's only one piece of the puzzle.
About what percentage of the standards are covered in these formative assessments?
For ELA, I believe it's all standards for each grade level.
And how about the things that are under the standards?
There's no foundational, no. No, so for ELA, it would be all of the reading literature and all the informational
And
standards.
are they pretty good predictors of where students are going to be?
So we're beginning to track that more this year than what we did last year. In fact, we just had a meeting today that we were starting to pull the formatives to be able to compare and look back.
Okay. And other forms of formative assessment?
I'm gonna get to that.
Okay.
We have other pieces of progress
Okay.
monitoring. Yes.
Just real quick.
How would the kindergarten tests administered
I'm sorry.
to the kids?
Kindergarten does not have formatives.
Okay, because you
Sorry. I apologize. Kindergarten and 1st grade do not have formative assessments for ELA, they have DIBELS instead. They have fluency assessments that they use.
Okay.
I should have been, thank you for pointing that out, I should have been more specific.
But I was like, what do
No.
they do?
They start in 2nd grade for ELA,
Okay.
and I'll get to the
All right,
DIBELS.
sorry.
So for our ELA instruction, we actually, part of our summer work is that we collect all of the school's master schedules, and the executive directors and I go through every schedule to ensure that every teacher in the building has an uninterrupted 90-minute ELA block. That's where they're standards-based and the majority of the on-grade level instruction is happening. We say 90 minutes because about 30 minutes of it is usually whole group, and then 60 minutes is small group instruction that is differentiated based on the student's need. Then, as part of state requirement, every class, every school, every grade level also has a 45 to 60 minute uninterrupted reading intervention block. And that looks very different depending on the school. So many of our schools do what we call walk to read, and so the kids, based on their need, will go to different classrooms, and it's very fluid. So if I need whatever standard Ms. Alivedo is teaching this week, I go to her class, but then the following week I might go to Dr. Spiro's class, depending on what my data shows and what my need is. That is not a requirement from the district, that is school-based. So some schools choose to, in their classroom, they're still required to do small group instruction, but they might service their kids, through small group instruction in their own classrooms. Then we have 15 schools that have an additional 30-minute of extended school day that they're required to use for ELA instruction. Any questions so far? Okay. I talked earlier about the massive amount of teachers. So one of the things that we have implemented this year are our leading and learning teams. We have leading and learning teams for every grade level, every content area. So for ELA, for elementary, it's K to 5, it's around 300 teachers that come down every quarter. So they're getting ready to come back next week. They have a training with one of our district coaches or content area specialists, depending on what grade level they're assigned to. What they do is they go through the standard, they go through differentiation, they go through best practices, what your 90-minute block should look like, what your small group instruction should look like. They're going through right now the DIBELS data and how to react to that data. And so depending on the grade level is dependent on what that training looks like. And then the person who comes down to the district office is then tasked to take it back to their school, and they train their grade level.
I think that's one of the most powerful things that we're doing this year. It really flips the model, really empowers teachers to come down. There's a common message, common approach that goes back to every single school across this district prior to that instruction ever happening in the class. So we're really trying to lay the foundation for all of us moving lockstep in the same direction, moving forward with the support from the curriculum and instruction department.
It also really helps with communication. So all of the leading and learning have Google Classrooms. And so anytime we're pushing out communication, it's actually getting to the teachers. Because before, you would only have one literacy coach that would come down, and it's very difficult for one person to get to all those teachers in a school, right? So this has really helped to get our professional development and our best practices into the classroom, which is where we want it to be. So you asked about progress monitoring, somebody did. The other piece of progress monitoring that we do every quarter is all K to 5 take the STAR progress monitoring, and based off of what the student scores on STAR, it pushes out for a program called Compass, and it puts them at their level. So then in their small group, when they have a computer center, it's going to give them instruction on where they scored based off of STAR. Another program that we began piloting last year in elementary, we had 15 last year, 6 joined on this year, so now we're up to 21, and we use the iReady program. Same concept, they take a diagnostic, they only take it 3 times a year, and then they have online instruction that pushes out based on what that student's individual need is. So you might be in 5th grade, and you're doing great in phonics, great in vocabulary, not so great in comprehension. It's going to kick out comprehension tasks for you to do. Or maybe I'm in 5th grade and I need help with phonics. It's going to push that out, whatever your assessment says that you need additional help in. Another piece that iReady program has is it has what's called a teacher toolbox. So let's say that I need additional instruction for this student on phonics, because if I'm a 5th grade teacher, I might not really know how to teach phonics. It's going to push out a lesson for me to then do small group with those students. And then our core reading program is Reading Street. That's what goes in the 90-minute block. 2 years ago, we started a pilot for Ready Gen. So we have 10 schools that actually use the Ready Gen program. Very similar, same concept. They're both a basal that they just follow through. Okay, so now to, yes.
I had, on the prior slide, the STAR progress monitoring, that's the STAR reading and the STAR math?
Correct.
Okay, so what I'm finding with my grandson, who's in 4th grade, at his school, they are doing the iReady, and they did it last year. And there was a lot of confusion and a lot of dissimilar data coming out of the STAR, the AR program and the iReady. They were scoring, or he was, and I found out from other children in his group and his teacher, they were scoring high with the AR level, so they could read a certain level book, but with iReady, it was saying, no, you can't, and it was bringing them down, and it was upsetting the children, actually, like, well, wait a minute, how am I dumb? Like, why am I smart here but dumb here? So I'm not sure if
Is that last year or
there's-
this year?
Yeah,
It was
this year,
last
but
year.
it's
This year it's
still,
better.
it's still all
So
over.
part of that is knowing how to read the reports. So that's why we pushed it out as a pilot in the beginning to kind of get all those kinks out of the way, and to
Right.
ensure that it was successful as well, but to get those
Right.
kinks out of the way. STAR will put a 3rd grader as an 11th grade reader. iReady will never do that. It keeps you in your grade level. So if I'm a high reader and I'm in 3rd grade, it's still gonna say I'm in 3rd grade. I'm just high 3rd grade.
Right.
And so being able to, and it's much more rigorous as well. So STAR is more of a skill-based program, where iReady is very standards-based.
And the kids are finding it very demoralizing, like, well, wait, I'm in the 10th grade reading level with STAR, so why am I just 4th grade in iReady?
So we are working on how we can report that data better to students and to teachers and to parents. Because it's not the program, it's the way that we analyze the program.
And I
It's the way that
didn't know how the data was
yeah,
being
it's the way we're
integrated.
reporting out that program. What we actually found last year was of the 15 schools, 12 of them went up in their letter grades, in their scores.
Well,
So it was
he did
very
find the
successful.
iReady more challenging, and
It is more challenging.
he liked the AR better. 'cause
Yeah,
the
of course he did,
Yeah, but I think it was conflicting. like-
No, you're absolutely right, and this has been a conversation because we just got out of school data chats, and all of the iReady principals, hands down, love the program, they're seeing success, it's just reading the data, and we gotta figure out how to look at it, because we're so used to the STAR platform
Exactly,
that we need to see how it compares to the iReady data reading platform.
thank you.
So intervention. I tried to go through and things that we have implemented and then we've made changes to for our intervention, because one of our needs, right, was our L25, and that they have become stagnant across our district. So one thing that was implemented last school year across the district was a phonics program. Somehow for the last couple of years, elementary did not have a set district-wide phonics program. Schools were just kind of pulling what they liked doing, whether or not it was successful, and even different teachers were using different things. And so we adopted, it's called Really Great Reading. It is a program that was implemented in all K-3. In kindergarten, it's called Countdown. All kindergarten students get the same program. In 1st grade, it's Blast. All 1st grade students get Blast, but then when they get into 2nd grade, you give them a reading inventory, and that determines what program they go into. So they either go into HD Word, which is a 2nd grade phonics level program, or they go back into an extension of Blast. And then that continues to 3rd grade. They either test into HD Word, they test into Blast, or some 3rd grade students don't test in anything at all because they already are well versed in reading. Yes.
I'm just curious, what happened to Spalding? Because years ago, Spalding seemed to be really successful.
I agree, and I was a Spalding school when I was an administrator, and probably 4 years ago, somehow we got a grant for Really Great Reading, and when we dug into Really Great Reading, it does all of the great things that Spalding does and more. So it extends it, because then it begins to differentiate when you get higher up. Spalding is Spalding, and you just use the same every grade level, and Really Great Reading extends through. One of the things that we did this year, based off of school feedback, is pushed Really Great Reading up to 4th and 5th grade. So in 4th and 5th grade, we have a large number of our students that still need phonics support. And so based off of if they test into the program, the district continues to provide the materials for 4th and 5th grade classrooms that a resource teacher pulls the kids out or somebody pushes in to provide the phonics instruction. The Read 180 program is a standards-based, oh, I'm sorry.
I noticed you had that, which I think is great, that 45 to 60-minute extra intervention block. Is it taught during that as well?
K-1 it is not. K-1 it is taught as part of their 90 minutes because it's an on-grade level program. But in 2nd and 3rd grade and up, it's taught in the intervention.
So even in 4th and 5th, it's taught in the
Yes. The Read 180 program is also an intervention program. It is for our 4th and 5th grade students. So 3 years ago, in 17-18, it was implemented in the 90-minute core. So schools would walk to read in the 90-minute in their core class, and all of the level 1s and 2s would go into one classroom, and they would receive this instruction. What we found was that it was not successful in that model, because then those students were not receiving their on-grade level supports and instruction. So last year, we moved it to the 60-minute intervention block. So students are receiving on-grade level with support in their 90-minute block. And then in the intervention, if they're a level 1 or 2, they received Read 180. If they took the Read 180 reading inventory and it said that they had phonics holes, last year they went into System 44. It's the same company, it's just that's the phonics side of the program. What we found based on our data was that it was not moving our 2Bs. Our 2Bs needed, that's right before you were on grade level. Our 2Bs needed more standards-based and they needed more push. And the data showed that Read 180 was kind of holding them back. And we needed to fill their standards-based holes, not necessarily, continue those interventions. So one of the changes that we made this year is that the Read 180 program is only for level 1s and then level 2As, but it's still taught in the intervention. System 44, 2017, 2018, we only used the computer application. Then last year, we used the teacher side and the computer application if they tested into it in intervention. Again, the data showed that that program was not successful and that the majority of our schools preferred really great reading over System 44. So we gave them the decision school-based. So some of our schools were very successful with System 44. If it's working, keep doing it. Some of our schools were not, and so we allowed them to move to really great reading as long as you were teaching phonics. If you have a 4th or 5th grade student, they have phonics holes, you have to teach phonics to your 4th and 5th grade students. Any questions so far?
Which one of these other programs are computer-based? Are they all balanced computer or?
Read 180 and System 44 have a computer side if you use it. You don't have to, it has the teacher station.
Okay.
And then it has a separate student application, a computer application if you choose. Really great reading is not computer-based at all, it's all teacher-based.
Okay, we used to use, my grandson is in 7th grade now, and I remember when he was in 3rd grade, how much he learned to hate reading, seriously, because there was a lot of drill, a lot of.
Maybe it was
Maybe
Compass.
it still has that, I don't know.
It could have been Compass, if the teacher was
I
putting
don't
it
know what it
on
was,
Compass
but
too
it
much.
It was a lot of multiple choice.
It was Compass.
And he hated the multiple choice, and his teachers thought he was failing reading. He needed 4 on whatever it was when he took the real test. But he would basically Christmas tree because he didn't, he wasn't real mature and he was away and just, so we're not doing that.
No.
Thank God.
No. Any other questions about these pieces so far? I'm sorry, I'm trying to move really fast. Okay. Another support that we pushed out last year. So take me back to my days of teaching kindergarten. I remember coming to a training that Dr. Tian gave on intensive reading and the importance of a balanced literacy model and how important fluency is, especially in the K-3. And somehow our district had gotten away from that. And so we wanted to tighten that up to ensure that not only were we tracking fluency so that teachers were really aware if their students had fluency holes, But then after that progress monitoring, how are we providing supports to teachers so they know what to do for students that have fluency holes? What do I do after that? So last year we implemented the DIBELS fluency assessment 3 times a year. It was only implemented in K to 3, and then if you were in 4th or 5th grade, if you were a level 1 or a level 2, you were required to take it. Kind of tracked it, didn't do a great job. Remember, we're building all these curriculum maps and all of these other things. There's only 4 people. So this year, we saw the data and said we really need to tighten up on our K to 2, and we really need to tighten up on our interventions for phonics and for fluency. So this year they have created a data tracking system. We have done multiple trainings. We're pushing it out through Leading and Learning. The team is going out to schools. They just took the assessment, I believe it was 2 weeks ago, and the data tracking is really able to say they have holes in this, they have holes in this, or they have holes in this, and then it pushes out what do you need. Because DIBELS isn't just, there's all these different components to it, and they might be low in one component but not in the other, and so it's different supports depending on what they're weak in, and so the team has done a really good job in being able to create those resources so that teachers can really help those students.
That was 1st and 2nd grade just took this assessment?
K to 3.
K to 3.
K to 3, and then if you were a level 1 or level 2 in 4th and 5th.
Okay.
Are those still individually assessed, teacher one-on-one?
Yes, so it is a time hardship because you kind of get used to it as a kindergarten teacher. Everything is one-on-one, right? Everything is oral. But you do have to test all of your students individually. 2nd, 3rd, 4th, and 5th, it's only a minute because we only did what's called ORF. K and 1, I want to say it's 3 minutes per student. One of the things that we found last year though was that schools were pushing in resource teachers or a para to give those assessments, but then that's not my data. I need to hear that kid reading. I need to see what mistakes they're doing so that then when I'm instructing them, I know what to do. And so we really encourage schools to have the classroom teacher. Yes, it takes time, to be able to do these assessments, but it's such good information for you to be able to use for your instruction. And we've actually got really good feedback on it. So I talked about the instructional guides. The instructional guides follow the balanced literacy model and the Florida reading model. They include small group differentiation for our lowest students. They include the achievement level descriptors. So if it's a level 1, it gives you a different lesson plan. Level 2, different resource. Level 3, different resource. So it really gives teachers a ton of support to teach, because we don't know the kids that are sitting in the classroom, right? So it's difficult for me to write a lesson plan for a classroom when I don't know the kids. And so we tried to make sure that we provided all the supports that you possibly needed. Makes them be really, really long, but it gives all the resources that they could need to teach any student in their classroom. We also provided standards-based exit tickets and then exemplar benchmarks. And so if teachers gotta take grades, right? And so we wanna make sure that the grades that they're taking are standards-based and are to the rigor of the expectations for the students. And so we give them examples they can use. And then we also implemented ELL and ESE supports this school year because that was a request. Any questions? I think that's the last. I know. Was that the last one, my slide?
It is. I'm gonna let them keep rapid firing questions at you though. Let her breathe for a second while I pass this out to you.
Go ahead, fast as I talk. I didn't even say that.
You're welcome.
I don't work either, so.
Here you go.
You mean click for you?
Yes.
Yes, please. Okay, so we're gonna go through, this is in response to some of those data pieces that you guys asked for at the end of last meeting. It'll speak to Dr. Spiro's point about our ELL students and to Dr. Quisenberry's point about our English language arts achievement, specifically to all of our students making learning gains. So you have the math data on there because Dr. Itzen and Ryan Libby sent us both charts. And we figured it was easier just to provide it all to you instead of trying to snip and cut. So you can ignore the math data, but then you have it for going back another time. But we're gonna focus in on that bottom chart, 2019 FSA English Language Arts. And I just want to read across with you how this data actually lays out. It's the same data that's on the screen. So it's grouped by our ELL students. And our ELL students are grouped into several different categories. So the first category that you see is our LY students. Those are our students who are actively participating in an ESOL program. So those are active in there, tracking, monitoring, getting those additional supports.
Those are ESOL level 1s and 2s or 3s and 4s?
All.
All.
Yep,
1,
so-
2, 3, 4.
Yep, and 5s, because we got 1 5 baby in there. In LY. So we'll talk across that category in a second. The next group we look at is LF. So LF are your ELL students who exited the program within the last 2 years. Okay? So LY, active in the program. LF, exited within the last 2 years. Because the state really likes to keep us on our toes, LA is brand new for the 2018-2019 school year. Right? It was new.
Another acronym.
Yeah.
3 to 4 years.
These
More data.
These are our ELL students who exited between 2 and 4 years. Okay? LY, active in the program. LF, exited 2 years. LA, 2 to 4 years. And then LZ are our students who have exited the ESOL program more than 2 years.
What's the difference between LA and LC?
They're working on that definition. Remember, LA is brand new. So currently, if you've exited, and you are an LZ, you haven't lost it yet. So you're gonna have some overlap here for the next couple of years. Remember, the state likes to keep us on our toes. We're reacting as quickly as we can with them. So now let's actually read the chart. So I don't know about you, but I'm very visual, so I'm gonna fold my bottom part of my paper, so I'm only looking across at my LY group. And remember, LY are students who are actively in the ESOL program. Here's how this reads. In the LY group, as a district, we had 767 students who had a prior year FSA that they were a 1A. Okay, so to make a learning gain, they need to at least jump out of that 1A bucket and move up somewhere on this chart. Of those 767 kids, 35% of them made a learning gain. Now we move over to the next category, 1B. So this is a mid-level one. As a district, we had 685 students who were a 1B, who are actively in the ESOL program. 44% of them made their learning gain. Again, to make a learning gain, I gotta jump at least a bucket. I gotta move at least up to the 1Cs. I gotta keep going on the chart. For our 1Cs as a district, we have 1,038 kids who are LY students who are 1Cs. 36% of them made their learning gain. 2As, you'll see we had 665 students who were a 2A. 40% of them made their learning gain. So again, remember, gotta keep jumping a bucket. They gotta at least go up to 2Bs. 2Bs get hard, because if I'm a 2B, it means I need to jump to a level 3, which means I'm now proficient. So we had 505 LY students who had a prior year 2B. 32% of those students made it out to proficiency. Then you'll see we had 170 students who were already considered proficient. So they were already a level 3. To stay and make a learning gain, you have to stay a level 3, but increase your scale score by 1. So 49% of those kids did that. We had 20 LY students who were a level 4. So they are meeting that standard. 20% of them made their learning gain, which means they had to stay a level 4 and increase their scale score. We did have one LY student who was a level 5. That baby had to stay a level 5. Unfortunately, on our chart, you're gonna see that baby didn't stay a level 5. I can't tell you where they went, so please don't ask me. I don't have that piece of information right
Did
now.
they get tested for gifted?
Maybe, I don't know. It would be a piece on the chart that if you would like us to dig in further, we'd need to look at. So that's how you read it across. So what you see now is you can look at the LY line compared to our LF, compared to our LA, compared to our LZ, compared to non-ELL. So the non-ELL line means that I was never an ELL student. I didn't have any of those codes, an LY, an LF, or an LZ. So that gives you our district data. Now, as Bethany stated when we first started, Bethany, if you'll click, please, thank you. This next chart, which is your next page, this is specific now just to the LY students, and it's by grade level. So we said we wanted to start elementary, because you could hear all those things that Dr. Q just went over with you, and there was a lot of them. So now when we look at just our elementary data, you would be looking at this chart at your 4th and 5th grade lines. So now it reads similar to the first chart we just went through, except I'm going to give you just a little snippet in 4th grade. So 4th grade, we had 45 kids who in 2018 were a level 1A. 27 of those kids made their learning gains, so 60%. So it reads the same across the chart. Yes, ma'am.
It's wonderful that you have these data.
Mm-hmm.
And you can tell at what level of English proficiency various students are and how they are jumping or not jumping up the scale. But I think what would help us to help you is if you could dig into the specific skills that a group did not have that caused them to not make the jump. Because otherwise there isn't anything that we can do to make suggestions other than say, well, if you've only got 36.5%, then it ought to be, 20% that didn't jump. I think what we're looking for here is some specific areas that we can give you input on, other than saying, well, turn the red green. Do you know what I mean?
Absolutely.
Yes.
So on the next
Thank
sheet
you.
behind that, which you can see that piece of where we know we have an opportunity and we're looking for input, and all those pieces Dr. Shields already shared with you of like where we're going with it, is that last page is our district learning gains for non-ELL. So you'll notice that we do have more of those green pieces there. So those interventions and pieces that Dr. Quisenberry shared, we know are moving. However, when we look at them compared to our ELL students, we see that we have areas of opportunity. That is an area where we need to dig in further, and we're also looking, as Dr. Spiro had mentioned earlier, this is a large opportunity for us as a district where we need to really kind of dig in and see what else is there. Because we have Imagine Learning that Evelyn Riviera, who she's the director over in ESOL, she partners with us in curriculum. So our students, for those students who are not even able to read and pass some of these inventories yet, if they can't read that reading inventory that Dr. Quisenberry spoke of because they're a monolingual, they don't even enter into one of these reading programs. They start at Imagine Learning first. So looking at some of our students are in 1As because they don't even have those foundational skills yet to make it into some of those reading interventions. So that's why we've provided you, going back at one of the requests were to dive into who's making those gains and not. When we look at our non-ELL compared to our LY population, this is an area where we have great need and opportunities. And I think Bethany just passed out, if you want to hit to this one. And I'll throw it back over to you, Dr. Q.
So we wanted to give you guys, and you guys did great, Dr. Wilkerson, if you can join a group that you sat in groups. But on your table is this table talk. So as you're looking at, and we're just looking at this data. So going through all of the things that I presented, if you can remember all of them, for interventions that we're putting into place, and then looking at this piece of data of our ESOL students versus our non-ESOL students and their level of growth, what kind of recommendations for support, what areas do you see based off of my presentation that we might need to implement. And so you only have one, so that you can work as a table, and if just one person can record, even if it's just, I see this level versus this level, or you're doing really great in this side versus this side, or anything that you can think of for ESOL support. And I'll give you 5. No, you can do it. Our data is focused on ESOL, but you can give any area of support. Yes, ma'am.
I guess it's very specialized, but a lot of it really depends on their home language, where they came from originally. Because it was my experience when I taught ESOL kids ELLs in reading in high school, that, you might have kids that were equally monolingual.
Yeah.
But their educational background. So, I had students that couldn't read because they didn't know English. But if they had good literacy from their other schools,
Or if they even
went to came here, because
We have high school kids that come that have never been to school.
I was just gonna say, and that really makes a huge difference
So,
with this. So
and it-
breaking down the ethnicities, that's huge.
And it does make a big difference, and so when we're dealing with so many different levels of complexity regarding to reading levels and levels of understanding of students, and that is where the big challenge lies. How do we help teachers differentiate in the classroom based around the varying needs? And
Yeah, like the kids from Guatemala versus kids from, I don't know, Colombia or Cuba or something, where they're literate. So we have kids that aren't even literate in their native language. And that's, to me, that needs to be another level of this.
I'm just curious, and this may be like going too deep into individual privacy, but is there a way to, when the parents come to enroll the children, to ascertain whether the parents are literate in their home language?
we can't ask a parent.
I'm just curious.
One of the things we did do was, we asked the counselors and the people when they enrolled the children to do a fluency test on them before they were placed in any class, whether it was intensive reading class or any class. And then, well, unfortunately, what we found out is 48% of our Hispanic students are coming who were not fluent in their own language. In other words, we took passage of the FCAT, transferred it into Spanish, assessed the students. They weren't fluent. They could not decode in their own language, let alone coming in and transferring to English.
And
So, that would be students 4th, 5th, 6th grade, whatever it would be. So I think.
In high school.
Yeah, so in high school. So tied to that, I mean, one of the things, you have to be careful about what you ask and how you ask it. But maybe a fluency test in their own language would be a very good thing to find out. Because if they're not fluent in their own language, they're already behind in decoding, they're behind in vocabulary. The children's main acquisition of vocabulary in elementary middle school is reading. It's not core language to read vocabulary. So.
They do a piece of that, and then that's what determines whether or not they're a lie or not is based off of that assessment. And then every student, K to 12, takes the STAR test whenever they enter as well. So they do take a
I'm not talking
piece.
about LY in terms of what they can read in English or English. I'm talking about are they fluent?
No, yeah, they try to do it in their native language. We have over 100 native languages in our district, so we don't have access to every single language, but we do have Spanish and Creole. Then we have students that come in that speak Portuguese.
And
Portuguese, sorry.
even within Spanish.
There's different dialects.
Exactly, because if they're from Cuba, that's gonna be different than somebody from Guatemala Spanish.
I want to add to what Dr. Q just said, and I think it's something that we often miss as native speakers. If a Spanish-speaking child does not know the difference between a noun and a verb in Spanish, we will never be able to teach them the difference between a noun and a verb in English. So going back to that pre-testing idea, we've got to make sure that they have the basic fundamentals in their own language before we can hope to teach them
So then what if they
the
don't?
language. If they don't, then you have to teach them what a noun is and what a verb is. You make it with examples in Spanish so that they begin to make that connection before you try and tell them what a noun and a verb is. Just as a quick anecdote,
So then what supports do you see that we would need, that schools would need to
we
be
need to
able
do
to?
that kind of pre-testing. I, just off the top of my head, from what I saw, I'm gonna say that there probably is a lack of sufficient informal formative assessment. I think you're very reliant on the packages, but I wonder how much is actually happening in each classroom, minute by minute, hour by hour, that really gets at the immediate needs for interventions for each child individually and the group as a whole. And I've noticed that in several conversations about formative assessments, and what I've picked up is that there's some resistance to formative assessment among teachers, because formative assessment is that practice test that's standards-based. And even
That's
though
not
we're
graded.
not gonna give it a grade, it still is a test of the classic variety. And it may be that there's some cultural change that needs to happen about what formative assessment is and how integrated it can be with everything that is done to get the kind of data that's needed. On a.
Okay, one more, and then I'm gonna get you to do your table assignments,
Just,
so you can talk to
do
each
you have
other.
intensive reading classes or separate self-contained intensive reading classes?
Not in elementary, no.
They do in secondary.
They do in secondary.
Not in elementary?
Well, it depends how you define that. So yes, we do, because they're required to do 45 to 60 minutes of
No, but I mean, a
intervention.
2-hour block, I used to have 2 2.5-hour block, it's just self-contained, intensive reading. class.
Yes, we still, no, we do not ability group the
That's
students
not
anymore.
ability, that's with educational needs. So-
They walk to read based on their need for intervention
Yeah,
to their intensive
Yeah, I
reading
understand
class.
that, I understand that. I'm just seeing if we have that program, I mean, we have that program, you're saying,
Yes, we do. Yes.
you have a self-contained intensive reading class.
When you say self-contained, yes, say we go to that reading, that 45 to 60 minute intervention reading class, but then they go back to the class.
Okay, but they're also the 90-minute,
Correct.
so
In
90
addition
is
to.
something they, okay, that would include a kid who was 3 years behind in reading. So a
Yes.
fifth grader reading second grade, you're still in a fifth grade curriculum.
So you are differentiated in your small group based off
Yeah.
of what you need, yes.
Okay.
Go ahead.
Yeah, I'm following the track here also with Judy, is that we have a lot of variables here and we don't really even have a control group necessarily. Because what we have is people coming from 100 different languages, we've got different economic backgrounds, we've got different education level parents, we have all of these different things, and they're all lumped in with English learners. And until we figure out which of those factors is making a difference, it's not even helpful for us to push forward with trying to we're just kind of pretending we know the answer if we don't know what that control group is.
I think what I haven't heard is that whole idea of, we've been talking around language arts, we've been talking about English as a second language. I haven't heard the word ESOL strategies. I haven't heard that discussed. And I know you mentioned about the variety of languages and what have you. ESOL strategies are ESOL strategies. I can have a kid from, in one of my schools, I had 10 different languages, Polish, Russian, all different languages. But ESOL strategies are ESOL strategies. And if they're used well, they're effective. And so that's what I haven't heard here today.
So
we have.
Yeah, we have them embedded in, so if you look at that bottom bullet there, so we have very specific ELL and then ESC strategies that teachers can use with every standard that they teach. And then we have a methodology throughout our district, it's a SIOP model, which is a Sheltered Instructional Operational Planning Tool model that is used through our ELL department that is pushed out to schools who have even a higher ELL population than others. And so it is a normal part of the work that we do across the district, is really looking at those strategies, because those strategies are good for not only ELL students, they're also good for ESC students. They are absolutely. And so yes, we do have those, and Bethany talked about it, but you know, we didn't show them.
I was gonna open up, so these live in every single one of our curriculum maps, specific for each of the content areas, and they are linked, and there are ELL resources, and it's broken down to I can do with support, and then it takes it a step further. So it gives the grade level cluster, and it breaks it down for the listening standards, the speaking, the reading, and the writing. So they have each one of those pieces depending upon what's needed and what ties to that instructional guide. So then, and this is the broad level, like the curriculum maps is that high level. This is the high level, the can-dos. And then inside our instructional guides, we partner with our ESOL department to then drill in and go, where does this fit best? For the standards that we're addressing, what strategies are going to best support the students and the teachers, because exactly as you just said, that's where we're going to head, and then it's good for all. So they're good strategies for all students.
The one thing that I noticed about at the opening of schools in one of my grandchildren's school, when I went to the opening of schools, children were coming into classrooms that parents didn't speak English, the children didn't speak English. This was second grade, and at that particular time, and there was no one in the classroom to provide, to tell the parents in Spanish what they needed to do. There was no paperwork in a corresponding in Spanish about, you need this many books, you need this, you need that. So I started going around down the block, so to speak, down the hallway, trying to find a translator. And I had to go all the way down 8 classrooms till I found somebody, and then took the lady down to that classroom to get the information. So that would be something that needs to be looked at, because sometimes, even in schools, there needs to be people around there to figure out who's going to be the translators.
So do you know what the state says is the rubric for that? 1 to 70 students.
Well, you know, maybe
1 to 70 students.
Maybe I'm spoiled because I come from Miami, and we're largely Hispanic.
It is a real problem. I taught at Tice Elementary, I taught kindergarten at Tice Elementary. In my class of 29 kindergarten students, 1 kid spoke English. So, we have 15 minutes. Okay, so I'm gonna give you about 5 minutes to write down on your table talk and kind of discuss, and then I'm gonna turn it back over to Dr. Wilkerson for our last piece.
Okay. I wrote down some quick things. I think what Dr. Wilkerson had said is that we can look at this data all day, and
The data is irrelevant
but
unless
the
we're
problem
actually
is,
analyzing
what
it.
skill did they miss? Why do I see so much red?
Does every ESOL teacher understand the language that they're actually teaching, or is that just how does that work?
No, and it doesn't matter.
So the issue really shouldn't be with the student, the issue should be letting the teacher understand what.
Here's the main, what I want, what I think. Okay, I have a teacher, co-teacher, with me every other day. There isn't enough. That's so many kids who are L25, are ELL, enough support. There just isn't. And I've got kids going to Google and using Google Translate. How long that takes them. And when they get to the FSA, they can't use Google. Their screen is locked. They have to use a dictionary to translate. Yes, technically they do get all day. The ELL students get all day to take the test.
But still, by the time you put that word to go back, the paragraph to go back, like you've lost control.
You're also assuming that they know how to use a dictionary.
Well, that too. And the other thing is too, is what if you get a Mandarin kid in your class? Like, do you have a dictionary for Mandarin?
No, I have Spanish and Creole, and that's it.
Right.
I have Spanish and Creole.
So we're not.
Right, so here's what we did. So we need to know the specific skill needed for students to dump a bucket
Yeah.
or a level up. Like, what is going on that you've got all this red?
Well,
You've got kids making less than 3%.
Well, it's funny
that's
because the
just-
math, everyone understands math. Math is a simple thing. The issue is language arts.
Yeah.
That's just ESOL students though.
Sure, okay, good,
I'll text my mom if she's watching my kids.
okay.
This is the one that you have right here?
Yes, yes.
That's just ESOL kids. None of our ESOL kids are doing great. At least when you have non-ELO students, it's typically this middle percentage that needs to start jumping.
Okay, so that's what I moved on to next.
Yeah.
The groupings. So is it possible for us to group students in their sub-level? So here's what happens with me. I got a class full of about 25 kids.
Which is what?
Okay,
What
it's like the
AP?
blind leading the blind. I've got a lowest 25% kid and another lowest 25% kid sitting next to each other, looking at each other like, you know what to do? You know what to do? I mean, come on, they work at the same level. Here's what we need in middle and high school, especially for elementary school, but I know middle and high school. Why don't we put a 2A, 2B kid mixed in with level 3s? Because then you're gonna get a level 3 kid who is at proficiency.
Actually can teach the other kid how to do it
Thank
because he
you.
was there.
Same thing for level 5 students. I had one class, my first year teaching here in this district, was all level 5 students. Okay, level 5 students don't need to be around other level 5 students. They're already all proficient. Well, the thing is, they end up getting in fights with each other because when I got them doing group work, they're over how strict the other person's line is. No, I don't care about that. Give me a level 5 kid and a level 3 kid, put them together.
So I will say, like, on a more
It's the pull-up, that's, you know?
yeah, on a more personal note though, like
Yeah.
my kids' schools, it's all mixed in, but kind of what
See,
you're
that's
saying.
nice.
Well, it is and it isn't. So
Okay.
my kid being in kindergarten, the teacher only has up to grade 3 books in that classroom.
Okay.
My child reads at a grade 4 in kindergarten.
Okay.
So now she is getting left behind in the class, and she even told me at a parent-teacher conference because she's having to work with the kids who don't even know their letter sounds versus having to find, I mean, like, even in group centers, she has to bring the kid, you know, back to the book by herself because what she's doing in her group, her differentiated instruction, for small groups, it's not gonna benefit my child.
It already knows it.
Yeah.
Okay.
So, like, yes, I agree.
I think
that
this works better for middle and high school.
But, like,
I honestly can't speak for elementary.
Yeah, 5 and 1, probably not a good match.
No, 5 and 1, I'm not saying don't put a 5 and a 1.
Oh, you're saying like-
I'm saying put maybe a 4 and 5 together. Now, don't have all the 5s like together, you know what I mean? 4 and 5, and maybe even a couple high 3s.
Yeah, I was gonna say, like,
mix them in.
25% of the highest 3s mixed in.
Right, and then I think, but especially for these guys are the hardest,
And it is,
they're the hardest to move, because here's what happens.
It's crazy because that age, they should be the most proficient at learning a second language.
I know, but this is,
Elementary teacher, it's very hard to
yeah.
because you're so focused at youth are they gonna catch up? I don't know. But at that, you know,
So
20
the
kids.
focus goes back on the teacher after we get them more support.
Right, it's what it is. Seriously, we need to hire more, not, yes, Florida needs to hire just teachers in general, but we need
That seems to be a thing in the United States.
support. Well, Florida's one of the worst.
Yeah.
I think Louisiana's like bottom. But the thing is, these guys, what ends up happening with them is they become double kids. So every year, you know, they're supposed to up. So let's say a kid, a 2A, let's do a 2B. Let's say a 2B gets a 200 in 1 year. Okay, doesn't sound too bad, but then they go again and they get a 280, still doesn't move them up. They need a 300. You know what I mean?
But they already
So-
gained 80.
Right.
They do it.
Yeah, they made gains. They gained 80 points. Move. So these guys are the hardest to move because it's like playing a video game and you beat the bad guy but she didn't move a level, you know what I mean? Like, it's kind of weird, like, it's just weird how they.
That makes sense.
It does.
From a data perspective, that makes.
It doesn't, no, it doesn't. Yeah.
And the other thing is too, we're basing this on 1 day of testing.
Yes.
One
Yes.
day of testing. What if the kid didn't get to eat breakfast at that? What if the kid had a really bad night? You know, now they're up late. Now they got a test the next day and now they failed because, you know, they might have been a level 3, but now they're gonna score 2A because they had a bad night. That's what it's 1 day.
Yeah, bad, because some of these people call it bad parent. I have broke parents too, so they.
Yeah. Oh, yeah. I had a kid come to me, I was at high school, New home, come in, testing day, was half asleep because he was in jail. There all night. There was in jail. So he was there all night. And high school starts at 7 a.m.
Yeah.
My student needed to get to his bus 4:42 in the morning.
Right.
And then took the test at 7:15 a.m. And I mean, it's like, it's one day of testing that we are basing this data off of. But regardless, even if we can't change that, okay, because that's the state of Florida. So let's say we can't change that. I think, especially for middle and high school, I mean, just speaking from that perspective, we need to start grouping kids by their subject level, not just by their overall level, because 1As and 1Bs and 1Cs are all mixed in together. I go, what if we 1As and 1Bs mixed with 2As and 2Bs, and a couple of low 3s could be in that as well.
Yeah.
4s and 5s should be together.
You know, and it makes a good, you know, let's say the lowest, I don't know, threes, and with the 2As and 2Bs.
Yes.
If you do intervention at the lowest 2A level, that's still gonna benefit the 3 because it's still building their skills.
Yes, it is. It will.
Absolutely still building their skills, and that could even.
I mean,
push
I'm
that.
sorry, I don't need a whole class of level 5 kids.
You're not gonna do anything like that. So now you're spending all day not teaching curriculum because they don't know it.
Most of them do, yeah. Most of them
now
are
what are you
fine.
supposed to do? Come up with like fantastic ideas to
I know. The thing is, it's you don't need this. I agree. Don't put these guys together, but you should get 4s and 5s and a couple. And it should be 3, 4s, 5s together.
Yes.
You know what I mean? Because first of all, there isn't even that many.
No.
To make up like a large 22 kids in a class, 25 kids.
No, you've only
There's not
got
many.
405 in the district for
There's not even
fifth
that
grade.
many. There's not even that many. When you look at this mess,
And that's a mess.
I'm sorry. When they say that they're doing interventions, you know, and it's embedded in the curriculum absolutely, it is, but these guys are still ignored. They need to be, we need to have sub-level
It
groups.
doesn't matter how hard you try.
Okay,
It's like
everybody
you're
can come back. We are
Yes.
running out of time.
And so,
Clap
that's,
once if you can hear me. Clap twice if you can hear me. Good job. Okay, we're running out of time and I want to honor your times with your families. And so we want to make sure that we end in 4 minutes. So thank you very much for working at your tables with this project. I'm going to collect them. I'm going to give them to our wonderful Helen. She will compile them and then we will email, if you didn't write anything, it's okay.
I wrote, but I wrote.
That's okay.
Do you want to?
What we'll do is.
No, that's okay.
I'm good.
compile all of the
I'm already hired.
And then email it back out.
I guess I'm the one
And then
who
I'm
benefit from most.
For our next step.
Anything that you can put in there from your discussion from tonight? Yes, if you can, or if you have some suggestions for next time, put those in there. If you can't, it's okay. Because we'll continue with this process next week. Are you guys, next month, are you guys?
We're not meeting next week, everybody.
Yeah, I know, are you, I get weeks, all mixed up. We're okay continuing this at our next meeting, and maybe having a focus on ELLs specifically. We all pretty much in agreement that we can focus on ELLs, because that's a big district need right
If that's
now?
what the need is, then that's what we should.
Absolutely, okay, I agree. And what we're gonna look for probably is the strategies and the resources that, in a broad level, that the district is using. And that will help us maybe come up with some specific suggestions. Sound okay?
Is the, just a quick question, is the ESOL, is that
We're gonna bring Evelyn over there at the next meeting, and we're gonna go over, these are the strategies, director of our ELL program, we'll bring you to the next meeting. Today was like, here's the data, that's what today's meeting, here's where we are, it's our area of need. Now we're gonna drill down and say, okay, so now we'll bring Evelyn in and say, these are the strategies we're using, and ask you to back.
If we just, somebody brought up, I believe you did, or somebody Matt brought up about the data with, elements and things on data. Could you just tell us the number of students that have not made their adequate yearly progress in 1 year, 2 years, 3 years? Do we have students that haven't made it for 4 years? Haven't made progress? Okay, so how many students do we have in just 1 year they've done that, versus 2, 3, 4? So if we get a pattern of how severe the problem is, so every 2 years and everybody makes it, yeah, that's great. But we've got some people aren't making that for 5 years. That's a real issue.
It's a real issue, but we also want to have issues that we can have some ideas that they may not have thought of.
Yes.
You had an excellent one today, and that's what I would like to see this group come up with, that, from our outside perspectives, it's maybe something that people who are so close to the situation haven't thought of. So I think that's where we can be the most help, because we're not so close to it that we can't see the forest for the trees, and we may see more of the forest. That's kind of what I'm hoping for.
I'm looking for the tulips personally.
All right, well, I guess we are done. We need a motion to adjourn.
I make a motion to adjourn.
Do I have time? All right, who's gonna second it?
I'll second it.
Okay, you're up, good second.
Thank you.
Thank you.
I go to a lot of meetings.
All in favor?
Aye.
Thank you very much.